The Depression era is one of those times that doesn't feel real when we talk about it today. It seems unimaginable that people used to survive on stale bread and dandelion greens, but the reality was exactly that. A hard, horrific battle with the worst enemy of all, hunger. People had to defeat hunger somehow or they would starve to death. We all know that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so it's no wonder that that is what they put their brain power towards. One of the most popular breakfasts of the time was Depression donuts. Forget your regular Krispy Kreme order and start writing this down. Depression donuts were all about survival since people back then weren't really rolling in dough, pun intended. But with minimal ingredients like flour, water, baking powder, and maybe a spoonful of sugar, these donuts became like a gift sent from above. Since eggs, butter, and milk were often scarce or expensive, people improvised with what they had. For the preparation, you'd mix up the dough and make it into little rings or balls depending on your preference, and fry in oil until golden brown. The results were immaculate. But if you've never fired donuts, don't expect this to be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You have to be careful because that oil will fool you. You think you're the one in charge, setting the stove temperatures and being all fancy. But once that oil is hot, there's no telling if you are frying or burning those donuts. So be careful, because donuts are no joke. Staying on the sweet side of things, we'll be talking about the ultimate zero-waste recipe, banana bread. Back then, letting food go to waste was practically a crime against humanity, and banana bread was the best solution for those overripe bananas to be saved. Instead of tossing them, creative cooks found a delicious way to use them up. They mixed them with flour, sugar, and a bit of baking soda, and created a nice, dense loaf of heaven. Eggs and butter were optional, and people often replaced them with whatever fat they had lying around. The natural sweetness of bananas made it a budget-friendly alternative to other desserts. Plus, banana bread was highly versatile. You could throw in nuts, raisins, cinnamon, or whatever odds and ends you could scrape up to stretch it even further. Banana bread was one of those Depression-era foods that stuck around to this day, and it's for good reasons. It is the epitome of a sweet, delicious, but healthy treat that has got everyone in a chokehold. It is healthy and packed with nutrients, while still remaining tasteful and filling. No wonder all those cooking influencers are making banana bread every other day. Gee, show us another recipe. I have quite a sweet tooth today, and I wish I could say that's because that time of the month is approaching. But, oh well, no excuses for me. Coming in on number 3, we have peanut butter muffins. This probably sounds familiar, and that is because you've most likely heard every health-oriented TikToker or Instagram influencer mention it at least once. It is quite popular in today's day and age, and not for bad reasons. But during the Great Depression, they weren't as luxurious as they are today. Quite the contrary, they were literal lifesavers. Peanut butter was cheap, packed with protein, and easy to store, making it a go-to ingredient for stretching meals. The muffins were a genius creation, made from simple pantry staples like flour, sugar, and a big scoop of peanut butter. They didn't need eggs or butter, which were often hard to come by, and they baked up into a hearty, slightly crumbly treat that filled you up for hours. The peanut butter provided a rich, nutty flavor, and you could eat them for breakfast, lunch, or as a snack, midday or midnight. They weren't just about the taste. They were supposed to give you strength for the day, and that's exactly what they did. They were a practical, budget-friendly way to get in as much protein as possible when times were tough. And come on, who doesn't love peanut butter in any way, shape, or form? Coffee soup, the liquid breakfast of the hard times. Coffee soup was one of the more unconventional Depression-era breakfasts, but it made sense when you think about the times. Coffee was cheap, which might come as a shocker since it is so expensive now. It was also widely available, so when families didn't have much to eat, they turned it into a meal. The recipe was dead simple. Pour a cup of strong, hot coffee over a slice of day-old bread or crackers, and there you have it, breakfast. Sometimes sugar or milk would be added if they were available, but more often than not, it was just coffee and bread. This was a quick and easy way to stretch a little coffee into something that felt a lot more filling than it looked. Coffee soup wasn't exactly gourmet, but it gave people the energy boost they needed to start their day. and it was a comforting routine when other breakfast options were out of reach. The bitter taste of coffee combined with the soft bread created a unique flavor that grew on you after a while. I am a coffee addict as much as the next person, maybe even more, but this may be the tipping point for me. But I guess it's kind of like a tiramisu, only without the cream filling, right? Maybe I would try it. God only knows it can never be too much coffee. Moving away from the sweets, sadly, and moving towards the greens. And by greens, I literally mean grass green. When times were hard, people needed to find resourceful ways to maintain a somewhat healthy diet. And that's what they did. Forget your local Trader Joe or Whole Foods and take a peek outside of your house or apartment building. What do you see? Just grass and weeds, right? Wrong! Those aren't just grass and weeds. That is your breakfast right there. During the Great Depression, people took locally sourced to a whole new level. Those pesky weeds you hate so much? That was the breakfast of our ancestors. Dandelion greens, though a bit bitter as far as I've heard, were packed with vitamins and minerals. And most important of all, they were free. People would pluck them straight from their yards, or a neighbor's yard if they weren't looking, and sauté them in a bit of bacon grease or whatever fat was available. The bitterness of the greens was tamed by scrambling them together with eggs, which added much-needed protein to the mix. I know some of you are already typing those angry comments like, they were so poor that they had to eat grass, but they somehow had eggs? And to that, I have to say, no. They most likely didn't have money for eggs, but a lot of people had their own chickens or knew somebody who did. And in tough times, people wanted to help each other as much as they could. There was something back then that is clearly lacking today, and that's a sense of community. But that's a topic for a different video. To get back to the dandelion greens with eggs, this wasn't a fancy meal worthy of a restaurant, but it was nutritious and cost, well, basically nothing, which was the two most important facts to put into consideration back then. Plus, there was something satisfying about eating a pest for breakfast. While we are talking about eggs, let's not forget to mention scrambled eggs with breadcrumbs, the ultimate egg stretcher. When you've only got a few eggs but a lot of mouths to feed, you start getting creative. It sounds humble, and it was, but it was also an ingenious way to stretch a couple of eggs into a meal for the whole family. Breadcrumbs, often made from the stale bread sitting around, were mixed into the eggs to bulk them up and make the dish more filling. Sometimes people would even fry the breadcrumbs first to add a bit of crunch. In the Depression era, nothing went to waste, even breadcrumbs. Adding breadcrumbs to eggs wasn't just a cost-cutting trick. It was also a way to make sure everyone got a portion, no matter how little you had to work with. It's nothing revolutionary, and personally, I think it has nothing on the dandelion green eggs, but it was a way to make the bellies stop gurgling. Since I can't stop thinking about sweets, let's circle back to them for a bit. Applesauce bread. Applesauce bread was one of those sweet, comforting recipes that made a comeback in the Great Depression when butter, sugar, and milk were hard to come by. Applesauce was cheap, easy to make, and could substitute for many of the pricier ingredients in baking. Applesauce added moisture and sweetness to bread without needing lots of sugar, butter, or oil. Pretty much all the good stuff that people didn't have access to. You'd mix it with flour, baking soda, and whatever spices were around. Cinnamon was the best, but you had to be lucky. This was the perfect recipe to create a dense, cake-like bread that was perfect for breakfast or dessert. And let's not forget the applesauce itself. It was a hero in its own right. People made it from leftover or bruised apples that would have otherwise gone to waste. So, not only was applesauce bread thrifty, but it was also the original waste-free, eco-friendly breakfast. Plus, it could be easily customized with nuts, raisins, or anything else you had on hand to make it stretch further. In a time when dessert was a rare treat, applesauce bread brought a little sweetness into some pretty tough days. Fried oatmeal patties might not sound so glamorous, but when you were trying to make the most out of the little you had, they were a treat. This Depression-era breakfast was a clever way to use up leftover oatmeal, which was already a cheap and filling staple. Instead of just reheating plain old porridge, people would mix the cold oatmeal with a little flour or cornmeal, form it into patties, and fry it up in a pan. I don't know how I didn't think of this. It's genius. The amount of leftover oatmeal I could have saved, Please don't call the Eco Patrol on me. I never know how much is too much. The result of this creative endeavor was crispy on the outside and soft on the inside patties. They could be eaten plain or topped with a little butter or syrup if you had it. And like most of these dishes, they were versatile. They could be savory or sweet, depending on your cravings and your abilities at the given moment. Fried oatmeal patties were a simple but satisfying way to stretch leftovers into another meal. And let's be honest, anything fried tends to taste better. Do I need to reference again the Kentucky Fried Chicken? I don't think so. Fried oatmeal patties were a great way to turn mushy old oatmeal into something you'll look forward to eating. Moving on to something less fun, egg and potato hash. Egg and potato hash was the ultimate Depression-era breakfast because it was cheap, filling, and easy to throw together. Potatoes, one of the most budget-friendly foods around, were diced and fried until crispy, then mixed with scrambled eggs. If you were lucky, you might throw in a little onion or whatever leftovers were kicking around. Bits of ham, maybe even a stray vegetable. The beauty of this dish was that you could stretch it as far as you needed. Not enough eggs? No problem, just add more potatoes. The fried potatoes added that crispy texture, while the eggs brought in some much-needed protein to keep you going through the day. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was warm and hearty, plus it kept everyone fed and happy. Egg and potato hash was the kind of meal that stuck to your ribs and could easily turn a couple of basic items into a satisfying breakfast that made you feel like you weren't missing out, even during tough times. I wish these were the sweet kind of muffins, but unfortunately they're not. We are going to get to know one of the breakfast staples of the Great Depression era, carrot muffins. Some might say that this was a sweet way to sneak some veggies to the table. With butter and sugar in short supply, people used the natural sweetness of carrots to help flavor their muffins, creating a sweet and moist breakfast without breaking the bank. Now, I get that carrots have a sweet taste to them, but I wouldn't call this meal sweet unless someone added some sugar to it. Not much, just a little would be enough. These muffins were also super versatile. If you had some cinnamon or nutmeg, you could spice them up. Or if you had some raisins or nuts, you could throw them in too for some extra flavor. They were an affordable, filling option that got people through hard times and got some vegetables into kids' mouths and bellies. Not a total parenting waste, don't you think? Just kidding, it was an epic parenting victory. Any veggies that somehow get into kids' hands is a win-win situation. As I mentioned before, eggs were hard to come by in those times, and it showed. Food didn't contain enough protein, and it was hard to maintain energy levels throughout the day. Now, I know eggless waffles might sound like an oxymoron, but during the Great Depression, you had to get creative. The secret? People started using a mix of flour, baking powder, and any liquid that was available, milk if you were living on a higher leg, and water if you were not. This created a batter that cooked up into crispy waffles. The texture wasn't quite as fluffy as regular waffles, but they were still delicious and could be topped with syrup, butter, or even some homemade jam if you had it. Eggless waffles became a symbol of resourcefulness and showed that you didn't need fancy ingredients to make something tasty. These waffles were the perfect balance of crunchy and chewy, proving that breakfast could still feel special, even when the cupboards were practically bare. Milk and cracker soup. That sounds, weird, to say the least. Milk and cracker soup was a simple, no-frills breakfast born out of necessity. When fresh bread was scarce and cereal was too expensive, people turned to whatever they had in the pantry, often crackers or stale bread, and made them work. The recipe was as basic as it sounds: crumbled crackers or leftover stale bread in a bowl with warm milk poured over them. Sometimes sugar or a sprinkle of cinnamon would be added if available, but more often it was just a pinch of salt. I mean, this dish wasn't going to sweep Gordon Ramsay off his feet or win any culinary awards, but it was quick, easy, and used up those last bits of pantry items that would otherwise go to waste. And that was the important part, keeping the tummies full and staying on budget. Milk and cracker soup wasn't fancy, but it stretched the family food budget, which was the whole point during the Great Depression times. The soft, mushy texture wasn't for everyone, but for families who needed to make a meal out of whatever they had, this dish was a reliable go-to. Spoon bread was one of the Depression-era foods that took humble ingredients and transformed them into something magical. It's like cornbread, but with a soft, custard-like texture that you literally scoop out with a spoon, hence the name. Spoon bread was like cornbread's creamy, comforting cousin. It was made from pantry staples, like cornmeal, milk, and a little butter. Spoon bread was a dish that delivered big on comfort despite being simple and cheap. It was baked until golden on top but still creamy inside, almost like a cross between pudding and bread. The beauty of spoon bread is that it didn't take much for it to be absolutely delicious. No toppings, no spices, nothing of that sort. You could enjoy it plain or add a bit of cheese, sugar, or even that leftover bell pepper hiding away in the pantry. It was great for breakfast, a side dish for dinner, or even as a dessert with a drizzle of honey. In tough times, spoon bread was the perfect way to make a little cornmeal go a long way. And anyway, any food you can eat with a spoon has a cozy vibe to it, doesn't it? Buckwheat pancakes were the breakfast hit during the Great Depression thanks to their hearty, filling nature. Buckwheat flour was much cheaper and had more nutritional value than regular flour. These pancakes were dense, nutty, and full of flavor, making them a favorite among families who needed to stretch their ingredients and get the most bang for their buck. Buckwheat is a grain that's rich in fiber and protein, which meant these pancakes could keep you full for hours, ideal for long workdays ahead. Now, these weren't your regular fluffy pancakes you see pop up on your feed. They were more rustic and had an earthy texture that went perfectly with a little syrup and honey. They were quite versatile, so some people even made them savory, frying them in bacon grease or adding onions. They were a flexible dish. They could be dinner one day and breakfast the other. These pancakes were perfect for mornings when you needed something substantial but had few resources. Plus, they were a great way to introduce a little variety into the daily breakfast routine, giving you a break from the usual oatmeal or porridge. Staying in the sweets aisle, we're moving on to homemade granola. Wow, I know some of you are shocked. That sounds so modern and trendy. But back then, it was a practical, affordable breakfast option for families trying to make every penny count. Granola was made from simple, long-lasting ingredients like oats, nuts, seeds, and dried fruit. Things that could be bought in bulk or found at home. Store-bought cereal was often too expensive, so homemade granola became the go-to breakfast for those looking to save money. It was baked until crunchy and could be eaten with milk, sprinkled on top of yogurt, or just munched on as a snack. The best thing about homemade granola is that it is entirely customizable. No raisins? No problem. Throw in some dried apples or whatever you had. No nuts? Just add more oats or seeds. It was the ultimate, cleaning out the pantry recipe. Granola could also be made in large batches, meaning you had breakfast sorted for days at a time. It was nutritious, filling, and a little sweet, making mornings feel just a bit more special when times were tough. Plus, it kept well, so you could stretch it out over several days without worrying about it going stale. Biscuits were the bread of choice during the Great Depression. Quick, cheap, and made from the most basic ingredients. Flour, baking powder, salt, and fat, like butter, lard, or even oil if you were out of options, were all you needed to whip up a batch of these simple but satisfying biscuits. They didn't rise as tall or flake as beautifully as the buttery biscuits we think of today, but they got the job done, providing a warm, filling base for many meals. Whether served with eggs, slathered with jam, or covered in gravy, biscuits were a versatile and reliable breakfast option. They were especially great for families because they could stretch out a meal. Fill up on biscuits, and you wouldn't need as much of the pricier stuff like meat or dairy. Sometimes people would add whatever they had lying around, like cheese, herbs, or even mashed potatoes, to bulk them up and make them more interesting. Whether served at breakfast, lunch, or dinner, simple biscuits were a Depression-era favorite because they were easy to make and comforting. In tough times, a warm biscuit was like a small luxury that could make even the hardest days a little better. For today, you'll just have to deal with my sweet tooth and my cravings. Sorry, not sorry. For our next dish, we have rice pancakes. They were a Depression-era classic that turned leftover rice into a delicious breakfast. When food was scarce, nothing went to waste. And this is a perfect example of that. Instead of throwing out last night's leftover rice, People would mix it with a little flour, milk, and an egg if they had one. The batter was then fried up into crispy golden pancakes. Now, the same thing goes for buckwheat pancakes. Rice pancakes weren't as fluffy. They were rather a bit chewy thanks to the rice itself. But they were just as good when topped with a bit of butter or syrup. And let's face it, anything that resembles a pancake feels like a treat, even when it's made from the scraps of yesterday's dinner. They were highly adaptable to what your pantry had to offer at that moment. They could go sweet with just a sprinkle of sugar, or savory with a pinch of salt. In a time when creativity in the kitchen was key, rice pancakes were a clever way to make a filling breakfast from practically nothing, proving that resourcefulness can lead to some pretty tasty results. Grits with butter was the ultimate Depression-era comfort bowl. Made from ground core, grits were cheap, easy to make, and filling. All you had to do was boil them up with water or milk if you had it, and they turned into a creamy, comforting bowl of goodness. Adding butter on top made this dish feel even more satisfying. Grits were a Southern staple, but during the Depression they found their way onto tables everywhere because they were so affordable and could feed a crowd on a shoestring budget. The best thing about grits is that they can be customized in any way you'd like. If you had cheese, you'd throw that in for cheesy grits. A little bacon grease? Now you've got a savory, rich breakfast. But even plain, with just a pat of butter and a pinch of salt, grits were a warm, filling start to the day. Grits is one of those foods that remind me of home and cold fall mornings. Circling back to rice for just a second, let's talk about rice porridge. Rice porridge was one of the simplest and most reliable breakfasts during the Great Depression. If you had rice on hand, you basically had the base for all 3 meals of the day. All you needed to do was cook the rice down in water or milk until it was soft and creamy, like a warm rice pudding without the dessert vibes. Rice porridge was endlessly adaptable. You could eat it plain with a sprinkle of sugar or a drizzle of honey, or go savory with a pinch of salt and a bit of butter. Some folks added cinnamon or a splash of milk to make it feel more indulgent, while others just kept it simple and let the rice do its thing. It wasn't fancy, but it was filling, warm, and comforting. A perfect way to start a long day. Rice porridge was the kind of breakfast that made the most out of what you had in the pantry. Sticking to the porridge theme, moving on to boiled barley porridge. Boiled barley porridge was a Depression-era staple for anyone needing a hearty, stick-to-your-ribs breakfast that would last well into the day. Barley, like rice, was cheap and could be bought in bulk, making it an essential pantry item during tough times. To make the porridge, barley was boiled until it was soft and thick, transforming into a creamy, comforting dish that was both nutritious and filling. It wasn't as common as oatmeal, but barley porridge had a unique nutty flavor that made it a favorite for those who had it on hand. It could even be cooked with milk for extra richness if that was available. The best part about barley porridge was how long it kept you full, making it the perfect breakfast for people who had long workdays ahead. Just imagine, you're waking up in the year 1929 and you're getting ready to go to work. You're still groggy and cranky. Life isn't treating you very kindly, and you know it. But the smell of freshly made barley porridge surrounds the house, and in those few moments you share with your family over breakfast, it seems like there still is a bright side to things. Ooh, I almost forgot the other grits kind. Let's circle back for a moment. Alongside grits with butter, there is also milk grits. The milk added creaminess and made the grits feel a little more indulgent. Perfect for mornings when you needed something to stick to your ribs and get you through the day. You could add butter to your milk grits and make a sort of combination of the two. A little pat on top made these grits taste like a fancy breakfast even when you were scraping the bottom of the pantry. But how are these two any different? Well, grits with butter was considered a salty meal to be served with bacon or cheese. But milk grits were usually sweet and often considered a dessert and not a breakfast option. Well, we all know that wasn't the case for me. Anything that could be considered a breakfast and a dessert at the same time is right up my alley. I loved waking up early as a child and seeing my mom make milk grits. And I'll let you in on her secret grits recipe. She always liked to add some honey and cinnamon to the mix. It made the dish 10 times better, I promise. Try it and see for yourself. Moving on to everybody's favorite, pancakes. Depression-era pancakes were the flapjacks without the fluff. They were all about making do with what you had, and that often meant pancakes without the luxury of eggs, butter, or milk. But resourceful cooks found a way. These flapjacks were made with basic ingredients like flour, baking powder, water, and maybe a little bit of oil or fat if you had it. While they weren't the fluffy, buttery pancakes we all know and love today, they still knew how to hit the right spot. Fry them up on a hot griddle, and you'd get a crispy, golden treat that was perfect for slathering with whatever topping you could scrounge up, molasses, jam, or even just a dusting of sugar. They were flat and a bit chewy, but they did the job of filling bellies without making you pull a bank job. You could make them savory by tossing in some leftover vegetables, or keep them sweet with a drizzle of honey. They were proof that you didn't need fancy ingredients to make something tasty. Sometimes the simplest meals are the most satisfying, especially when they remind you of what's possible even when times are tough. Molasses toast was the ultimate make-it-work breakfast during the Great Depression. Toast was already a cheap and filling option, but top it off with molasses, and it became a sweet, sticky treat. Molasses, a byproduct of sugar production, was cheaper than sugar and became a pantry staple for families looking to add a little sweetness to their meals. All you had to do was toast a slice of bread, or whatever bread-like product you could find, slather it with butter if you had any, and drizzle it with molasses. And it wasn't just a breakfast option. Molasses toast was also versatile enough to be a snack or dessert. The molasses gave you a burst of energy, while the toast filled you up just enough to get through the morning. It might not have been fancy, but it was comforting, affordable, and a quick fix for a sweet tooth when you didn't have much else in the kitchen. Hardtack with jam. What's that, you might be wondering? Hardtack was the notoriously hard, dry biscuit that was used by sailors and soldiers. It had made a surprising comeback during the Great Depression. This shelf-stable cracker, made from flour, water, and salt, could last for months, making it perfect for tough times when fresh bread was a luxury. But eating hardtack on its own was just sad. And let's not forget to mention, hard on your teeth. That's where jam came to the rescue. Adding a smear of jam, or whatever sweet spread you could get your hands on, made the hardtack not only edible, but actually enjoyable. The sweetness of the jam softened the hard biscuit a bit, turning it into a makeshift breakfast that could carry you through the morning. Hardtack with jam wasn't about gourmet flavors. It was about survival, stretching ingredients, and making the most of what you had. Whether you soaked it in coffee or milk to soften it up or just a bit down and hope for the best. Hardtack with jam was a Depression-era breakfast that proved you didn't need a lot to make something work. It was basic, yes, but it got the job done and added a little brightness to an otherwise tough time. Farina with lard is the forgotten dish of the Depression era. Farina with lard was one of those unsung heroes of the Great Depression. A breakfast that wasn't glamorous, but got the job done when times were tough. Farina was a hot cereal made from finely milled wheat. Think of it as an ancestor to cream of wheat. It was incredibly cheap and could be bought in large quantities. For families looking to stretch their budget, farina became a go-to meal. However, during the Depression, ingredients like milk, butter, or cream were hard to come by. So what was the solution? Lard. Yes, you heard that right. Lard was the stand-in for any kind of fat or richness. Now, before you're too disgusted to continue listening about cereals with lard, hang on, allow me to explain. Keep in mind that during the Great Depression, lard was as common in the kitchen as butter is today. It was inexpensive, versatile, and added much-needed calories and fat to meals. When stirred into hot farina, it melted and gave the porridge a richness that made it feel a little more substantial, especially when other luxuries weren't available. While we may think we're too sophisticated for something like that before we turn our heads and lift our noses to the sky, we have to remember that those weren't animals who ate that food. Those were our ancestors. People who were forced to eat so minimalistic and plain. Back then, farina with lard was a lifesaver, one that added a layer of warmth and satisfaction to a simple, bland bowl of wheat. Farina with lard wasn't meant to be a sweet or indulgent breakfast. It was a functional meal designed to provide energy and fill bellies. It may not have been a culinary delight, but farina with lard was a prime example of how families made do with what they had. A humble, forgotten dish that speaks volumes about the resourcefulness of people during one of the toughest times in American history. From humble farina to sweet Depression-era pancakes, these breakfasts paint the complete picture of life back in 1929. Scrapple, a traditional Pennsylvania Dutch dish, dates back to the 17th century. It's a savory breakfast item made from pork scraps and cornmeal, formed into a loaf and fried. The dish uses specific animal parts like pork liver, heart, and trimmings, combined with cornmeal and spices, creating a unique flavor profile. Scrapple is usually fried and garnished with maple syrup or ketchup, making it versatile. Scrapple is considered one of the earliest forms of American comfort food, as it was created by German immigrants who settled in Pennsylvania. It's popular for its rich flavor and association with Pennsylvania Dutch culture. It became a regional specialty due to its resourcefulness and distinctive taste. Scrapple holds cultural significance as a testament to frugality and tradition, often served with eggs or toast. The Fluffernutter sandwich, created in the early 20th century, is a classic American dish often enjoyed as a sweet treat or snack. This nostalgic sandwich is made by spreading peanut butter and marshmallow fluff on white bread. The dish typically uses soft white bread, which complements the creamy textures of the fillings. The brand of marshmallow spread traditionally used is Marshmallow Fluff, invented in 1917 by Archibald Query in Somerville, Massachusetts. It was originally sold door-to-door before gaining widespread popularity. The sandwich became a popular childhood treat in the mid-20th century because of its sweet and satisfying taste. The term Fluffernutter was coined by an advertising agency in the 1960s, solidifying the sandwich's identity. Koogle spread on toast was a quirky and delightful dish first created in the early 1970s. The dish consists of Koogle, a flavored peanut butter spread slathered on toast. Koogle came in various unique flavors like chocolate, vanilla, cinnamon, and banana, making it a playful alternative to regular peanut butter. The spread, manufactured by Kraft, became popular due to its unique and sweet flavors, which appealed to children and adults alike. The most popular flavor of Koogle spread was chocolate, which was often enjoyed as a sweet breakfast treat or snack. Koogle was discontinued in the late 1970s due to declining sales. Maple bars are a type of donut that was first created in the mid-20th century. This sweet treat is typically enjoyed as a breakfast item or snack, especially in the Pacific Northwest, where it has become particularly popular. Maple bars are made from a light and airy dough that's shaped into a rectangular bar, then fried and topped with a sweet maple-flavored icing. The maple bar is believed to have originated in Portland, Oregon in the 1920s, with local donut shops offering this unique variation of the classic donut. The type of dough used for maple bars is similar to that of traditional donuts, ensuring a soft and tender texture. In 2013, the mayor of Portland declared June 7th as National Donut Day to celebrate the city's rich donut culture, including the iconic maple bar. Johnny cakes, a traditional American dish, dates back to the early colonial period. They are typically enjoyed as a breakfast or side dish, offering a hearty and simple meal. The dish is made with cornmeal, water, and salt, forming a batter that is fried on a griddle. Traditionally, Johnny cakes are made with stone-ground white cornmeal, which gives them a unique texture and flavor. These cakes are cooked until golden and crisp, then served with butter, syrup, or other toppings. Johnny cakes were a staple food for Native American tribes in the Northeast, who taught European settlers how to make them from local ingredients like cornmeal. Johnny cakes became popular when they were embraced as a traditional breakfast food in New England and the southern United States. Pancake on a stick, a fun and convenient breakfast treat, was first created in the early 21st century. This dish combines the classic flavors of pancakes and sausage into an easy-to-eat form, typically enjoyed as a quick breakfast or snack. The dish consists of a sausage link coated in pancake batter and then fried until golden. Pancake on a stick became popular when it was introduced as a convenient food option by companies like Jimmy Dean. Unusual variations, such as using different types of sausage or adding cheese, have added to the appeal of this dish. In 2017, pancake on a stick was featured on the menu of select fast food chains, further popularizing this innovative breakfast option. The dish has since become a favorite at state fairs and festivals across the United States. The Bologna and egg breakfast sandwich is a straightforward and satisfying dish that has been enjoyed since the mid-20th century. This dish combines fried bologna, a cooked egg, and cheese on a soft roll or bread. Fried bologna sandwiches have been a staple in working-class American households since the early 20th century, providing a hearty and affordable meal option. The bologna is typically prepared by frying it until it develops a crispy edge, while the egg is cooked to preference, often sunny side up or over easy. The sandwich is usually served on a soft roll or white bread, complementing the savory fillings. In 2019, a food truck in Nashville, Tennessee, gained attention for serving gourmet versions of the classic bologna and egg sandwich, elevating it to a trendy brunch item. Waffles with chicken is a classic Southern dish that beautifully combines savory and sweet flavors, first appearing in the 1930s. This dish pairs crispy fried chicken with fluffy waffles. The ingredients include chicken, flour, eggs, and buttermilk for the waffles, while the chicken is coated in seasoned flour before frying to golden perfection. The waffle batter is cooked in a waffle iron, resulting in a tender texture. Maple syrup is usually paired with this dish, enhancing the flavor combo. Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles helped popularize it, introducing this delicacy to a wider audience and solidifying its place in American food history. This iconic restaurant chain was established in Los Angeles in 1975 and quickly became famous for this unique dish. Toaster strudel, a sweet and convenient breakfast treat, first appeared in the early 1980s. This quick delight consists of flaky pastry filled with fruit or cream, toasted and topped with sweet vanilla glaze. Varieties like chocolate, cinnamon, and seasonal fruit keep it exciting. The type of icing traditionally used for toaster strudel is a sweet vanilla glaze, which adds a touch of indulgence to the crispy pastry. The treat became popular when it was embraced as an easy breakfast option by the Pillsbury Company. The brand's iconic Little Chef character helped promote toaster strudel as a fun and kid-friendly breakfast option. Toaster strudel was inspired by traditional Austrian pastries like Apfelstrudel, which were popularized in the United States by European immigrants in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Toaster strudel influenced breakfast trends, offering a quick and delicious option for busy mornings. French toast with powdered sugar, also known as pain perdu in France, is a beloved breakfast dish dating back to the 4th or 5th century. It involves dipping bread in a mixture of eggs and milk, then frying it until golden brown. Traditionally, it's served with powdered sugar, though various toppings like fruit or syrup can be added. The bread choice impacts the dish, with brioche or challah being popular for their rich texture and flavor. The name pain perdu means lost bread, as it originally used stale bread to prevent waste. Unique toppings such as cream or savory ingredients have added variety to this classic. In the U.S., Julia Child popularized French toast, cementing its place in American cuisine and making it a household staple. Her televised cooking show, The French Chef, played a significant role in introducing French toast to a wider American audience. The malted milk drink, a sweet and nostalgic beverage, first appeared in the late 19th century. This creamy delight is made from milk, malt powder, and sometimes ice cream, blended into a refreshing treat. The drink was invented by William Horlick, who patented malted milk powder in 1887 as a nutritious supplement for infants and invalids. It was popularized by brands like Horlicks, which marketed it as a nutritious and tasty option. Unusual flavors or variations of the malted milk drink include chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, adding to its appeal. In the early 20th century, malted milk was touted as a health tonic and was even recommended by doctors for its nutritional benefits. The drink inspired a love for creamy and sweet drinks, often enjoyed as a quick breakfast on the go. Rice Krispies Treats for Breakfast is a playful and inventive dish that originated in the mid-20th century. In 1940, Kellogg's introduced Rice Krispies cereal. And soon after, recipes for Rice Krispies treats began appearing on the cereal box, contributing to their widespread popularity. This fun treat consists of Rice Krispies cereal mixed with melted marshmallows and butter, shaped into bars. Rice Krispies give it a light and crispy texture, while toppings like chocolate chips, peanut butter, or colorful sprinkles make it festive. The treats gained popularity when families began enjoying them as a playful snack, beloved by both children and adults. Their airy texture and gooey sweetness set them apart from other cereal-based treats. Rice Krispies treats showcase the potential for creative and indulgent snacks, reflecting the joy of childhood and the endless possibilities of breakfast. Breakfast in a can is a quirky and convenient dish that emerged in the early 20th century. This all-in-one meal includes ingredients like beans, sausage, eggs, or pancakes, all packed into a can for easy prep. The convenience and versatility of this dish have made it a favorite among campers, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts. During World War II, breakfast in a can became popular among soldiers as a portable and shelf-stable option for breakfast in the field. The type of meat commonly used in breakfast in a can varies, but it often includes sausage or bacon, providing a savory and filling meal. Breakfast in a can showcases the potential for ready-to-eat meals. Despite its humble origins, breakfast in a can continues to be enjoyed today as a convenient and satisfying breakfast option for people on the go. Hamburger hash, a hearty and comforting dish, became popular in the mid-20th century. It's a breakfast favorite made with ground beef, potatoes, and onions sautéed together. Ground chuck is often used for a flavorful base. Hamburger hash is garnished with fresh herbs or served with eggs, adding to its satisfying taste. The dish became popular for its convenience and hearty appeal, especially for families or large groups. Regional variations exist, such as incorporating bell peppers or different meats. In some regions, corned beef hash is a popular variation, using corned beef instead of ground beef. The dish was commonly paired with coffee or juice for breakfast, reflecting America's love for hearty morning meals. Cereal with half and half is a decadent and indulgent breakfast choice that became popular in the mid-20th century. This dish involves serving cereal with half and half cream instead of milk, creating a rich and creamy experience. The type of cereal most commonly used in this dish varies, but it often includes classic choices like Corn Flakes or Wheaties. The reason half and half is used instead of milk is to add a luxurious texture and flavor, enhancing the cereal's taste. In recent years, health-conscious consumers have sought alternatives to traditional half and half, leading to the popularity of dairy-free options like almond milk or oat milk for this indulgent breakfast dish. So let's get back into some really good breakfast options with sausages and scrambled eggs, which you might have grown up seeing not just humans eat, but cartoon characters, people in movies, and in magazines and ads. There is a good reason for that, and it is because sausages and scrambled eggs were the perfect working-class breakfast. It took very little time to make while you would get ready for your shift, and it took even less time to eat. You will notice that most meals on this list try to strike a balance between taste and prep time, and that is because most of them are made with simple ingredients and recipes. Quick dishes that can help you get a breakfast in without needing you to stay half an hour or more in the kitchen. Top that off with some sauce or gravy if you have any leftovers, as gravy was a staple of many dishes back then, and you had yourself a solid meal. While we are on the topic of what goes great with eggs, let's talk about how nice ham and eggs are. Few dishes can stand the test of time as well as ham, steak, and eggs have done, and we think it is because they can be so versatile. You can have your eggs done with just the whites, a fluffy yolk, an omelet, or sunny side up. The ham steak could be cooked according to your preference too, and all variations of the dish took roughly the same amount of effort. It was a dish that had mass appeal built into it, and the best part was that it was affordable. If you could not spare the budget for some real steak, then ham steak would come close enough to satisfy those cravings. Sausage gravy over toasted bread is a traditional Southern breakfast that for a long time was the heart and soul of the South, especially in places like Texas. You should not confuse this with country gravy because there is a stark difference between the two. See, country gravy does not have the juicy, mouth-watering, glorious addition of animal fat involved in the process. Sausage gravy, on the other hand, uses loose pork sausages. And once the meat is rendered, it takes the fat and mixes it with flour to make the roux and thicken the gravy. You pair that up with some perfectly golden brown toasted bread, and you are in for a world of culinary delight. The best part was that you could amp up the smoky sausage flavor by just adding more sausage to the gravy or keep it toned down for a milder taste. Either way, an incredibly yummy and economical breakfast. Here is one for our fans who love ranch-style eggs and cannot go without them. Huevos rancheros was an incredible dish that would be served on Mexican rural farms and was very popular in Latin American communities. It was a conventional egg dish made in the style of traditional large mid-morning fare. You can keep it simple and traditional with some fried eggs served on a charred corn or flour tortilla base with a spicy salsa, or keep experimenting. There are lots of options to play around with too, like Mexican-style rice, guacamole, and avocado. This takes a bit more effort than anything else on the list so far, but if you are willing to put in the work, you will find an egg dish like none you have ever had before. Grits are a kind of porridge that is made with dried maize or hominy, and it has to be this really fine, coarsely ground maize. Usually, the type that is used is treated with alkali, and they are made with warm salted water or milk, but on its own it has all the appeal of oatmeal, which is not much to say the least. Sure, porridge works, but it needs a team of other things to really make it shine. Grits made with an Eggs Benedict or fried eggs would often work really well, and the porridge had one strong redeeming factor. It was much more creamy than you would usually expect porridge made with water to be, and that is because the grits release their starch, which makes the consistency a lot thicker. Fried potatoes and onions were a 1920s classic, especially during the recession, which made it very difficult to get most basic ingredients. You could forget about buttermilk pancakes or nice cuts of steak. People were lucky enough to scrounge up enough potatoes for the week. However, the same mashed potatoes 5 times a week can get pretty dull, so people had to find all kinds of ways to spice things up that involved more than just a tad more black pepper. What they found out was that cutting potatoes into cubes and frying them with onions along with some bread made for a phenomenal combo, and if they had the oil to spare, it created a better texture for the dish. This was affordable enough that people could have it without worrying, and tasty enough that it would ease your tensions for a while. The perfect dessert to satisfy your sweet tooth were some grade A blueberry muffins stuffed to the brim with fresh berries. Whenever you would head on over to your grandpa's for some much-needed family time, you could always expect to see a basket full of these right out of the oven. Home chefs and housewives in particular swore by their preserved blueberry muffin recipes, which they would keep a secret and pass down like a family heirloom to their kids. Maybe that is a good thing too, since gatekeeping your grandma's blueberry muffins makes it all the more nostalgic in a strange way. People wanted more out of their muffins than the simple ones they were used to, and the idea of adding berries to them breathed new life into muffins as a whole, which brought them back on equal footing with cookies and biscuits. Quiche Lorraines were made of these flaky pastry crusts that would be filled to the max with savory egg custards and cheese as well as bacon. It was incredibly popular in French-American neighborhoods and restaurants since it was originally a European dish. But it does not take a genius to figure out that Americans would love this too. Essentially, it is a tart or pie with a meaty egg filling, which sounds incredible and tastes even better. You can eat this cold or hot, it is up to you, and the choice of meat is yours to decide too. Most restaurants let you choose between bacon, ham, or pork, and the dish is a bit hard, but if you can follow a recipe, making this at home gives you liberty with every aspect of the dish. Housewives would very regularly create their own takes on Quiche Lorraines, some of which were better than what you would find in a fine establishment. Hash browns were the perfect meal to get when you were craving food that would make you happy as soon as you took that first bite. Shredded and diced potato fried into what is essentially a big fat potato nugget. Hash browns tasted all the better when they were coming from your beloved grandma, and when she went all in with the spices. They were the kind of potato-filled goodness to even put hash browns from McDonald's to shame. And whatever hour of the day it was, there was never a wrong time to indulge in them. Hash browns have been a classic of American cuisine since 1895, and we think they'll be around well into 2095 too, if we ever get that far. You do not stumble upon comfort food like this in every generation after all. Besides just using traditional flour, eggs, and butter for pancakes, people back then also enjoyed making buckwheat pancakes, which were less common. These would, as the name implies, involve buckwheat being used in the cooking process, and the outcome of it was actually pretty delectable. People would love the nutty texture that these pancakes would provide, and everyone was always looking for a way to freshen up their favorite American breakfast anyway. Buckwheat pancakes with a chocolate spread or butter made for the perfect breakfast to start your day right. The extra dose of fiber kept you full and energized throughout the day. It was common to have these pancakes with a side of sausages or English muffins, and if you recreate this today, you'll find a comforting breakfast experience that you might consider keeping in your weekly rotation. The next on our list are some classic country fried steak and eggs with a breadcrumb twist that gives this staple meal a new personality with an exciting crunch. Think of it like eating a slightly crispier steak. Depending on how much breading you choose to use with the steak, the result is a steak that is not chewy or one that needs to be torn rigorously, but one that simply falls apart in your mouth very smoothly. When you pair that up with the delicious gravy that would work just as well with some mashed potatoes as a side, you get one of the 90s best hits. For good reason too, it is hard to make a dish that takes care of everything in one fell swoop. You have your nutrition ticked off, it gets you full. It is not too expensive to make, and the kids love it. One has to wonder what more you could ask from a dish. Buttermilk pancakes were a great alternative to buckwheat pancakes if you got tired of those, and this is for all the people that love having a much sweeter kick to start their day with. If you have never been familiar with the magic that some simple buttermilk can add to your pancakes, then you need to get yourself acquainted. Grandpas in the 90s would often specifically look for buttermilk in stores, and housewives would have it tacked onto the grocery list despite it costing a little bit more than your more basic ingredients. Especially if it was a guarantee that the grandkids and family were coming over this week, then you could not avoid splurging a little more on stuff like this. Whether it is the 90s or the 2020s, nothing beats pancakes made straight from your grandparents' hand, and that goes triple for buttermilk ones. Let's say you have a more active lifestyle, and you want to do away with the pancakes and fried stuff for breakfast. You can always try out a classic recipe for oatmeal made with brown sugar and cream, which not only makes oatmeal a lot more interesting than it would be on its own, but ticks off the health boxes. You get your protein, you get your fiber, and you get your taste buds satisfied. Whether you are an adult or a kid, that is a pretty good deal, but especially if you are trying to cut some weight and get into the gym more regularly. Grandparents would typically be aware of that, or that kids would come around to the need of physical activity soon enough, so they would make sure their grandchildren had at least 2 or 3 bowls a week of oatmeal. It was pretty hard to get them to eat it though, so the addition of brown sugar and cream was a godsend. 1964 by Carnation, this wasn't just your average breakfast, it was breakfast on the go. Available in tasty flavors like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, chocolate being the preferred choice, it promised the nutrition of a complete meal. The drink became a morning staple due to its convenience and nutritional content, highlighted in campaigns that emphasized its health benefits. Over the years, as consumer tastes evolved, Carnation adapted its formula to include lower sugar and higher protein versions, meeting the newer nutritional expectations without compromising on the quick, delicious start that families had come to rely on. Remember Quisp cereal? Launched by Quaker Oats in 1965, this cereal brought a whole new level of fun to the breakfast table with its alien mascot and saucer-shaped pieces. It quickly won over children with its sugary flavor and captivating animated commercials that made breakfast fun. The cereal's unique branding and playful design were key differentiators in a crowded market. Despite its initial success, the shift towards healthier breakfast options posed challenges for Quisp, leading to its eventual status as a nostalgic item brought back periodically to appeal to adults who had grown up with it. This strategic shift in marketing to tap into nostalgia, combined with occasional updates to its formula, allowed Quisp to maintain interest among former fans while navigating the complexities of modern cereal markets. Introduced in 1963, Sunny Delight positioned itself as a healthier alternative to sodas by offering a vitamin-enriched, citrus-flavored beverage that quickly captured the market's attention. Its bright color and sweet taste made it a hit among children, while its marketing campaigns emphasized a fun and active lifestyle, integrating Sunny D into scenes of youthful energy and outdoor activities. Despite its success, the brand encountered criticism for its high sugar content and low percentage of real juice, prompting several reformulations to increase authenticity and align with healthier consumer preferences. These changes allowed Sunny D to update its image and product offerings to better meet the expectations of modern consumers looking for healthier drink options. Spam rose to prominence during World War II, appreciated for its convenience and shelf life, and it continued to be a staple in American households thereafter. It was marketed as a versatile ingredient suitable for a variety of dishes, appealing to families looking for quick, budget-friendly meal options. Hormel Foods, the maker of Spam, responded to changing culinary preferences by introducing new flavors and varieties, aiming to reinvigorate the brand's appeal amid shifting consumer tastes that favored fresher, less processed food options. These efforts included targeted marketing campaigns that emphasized Spam's versatility in modern home cooking, showcasing its ability to adapt to current trends while maintaining its core identity as a convenient and reliable food product. Ever wonder why corned beef hash became such a breakfast staple, especially during the bustling post-war era? It combined diced corned beef, potatoes, and spices, all canned for convenience. Typically served with eggs or toast, this meal option was a quick, hearty solution for families on the go. Promoted by brands like Hormel and Libby's, its marketing highlighted the ease of preparation and robust flavor, appealing to those with limited time for cooking. These advertising efforts often portrayed corned beef hash as the hero of the busy morning, saving time without sacrificing taste. The product maximized American values of efficiency and practicality, fitting perfectly into the fast-paced lifestyle of its consumers. It continued to be recognized for its convenience and satisfying taste. Curious how Jiffy Pop pancakes made morning meals a breeze with their "just add water" mix during the hectic 70s. This convenience resonated deeply with the 1970s households, streamlining the morning routine remarkably. The product's simplicity allowed anyone to quickly whip up pancakes, making it a popular choice among families with busy schedules. Jiffy Pop's marketing cleverly focused on these time-saving aspects, often showcasing family breakfasts that were both delicious and hassle-free. The mix was versatile, catering to various taste preferences with different flavors. While Jiffy Pop pancakes enjoyed popularity due to their convenience and taste, the evolving breakfast market eventually led to reduced visibility and presence, as newer breakfast options continued to diversify. Fruit cocktail in heavy syrup was a beloved component of breakfast and dessert menus, particularly during the 1970s. This mix of diced peaches, pears, grapes, pineapple, and cherries, all preserved in thick syrup, was a convenient and tasty addition to many meals. Del Monte and Libby's were leading brands, heavily marketing the product's ease of use and the sweet indulgence it offered. The syrup's rich flavor enhanced the appeal, making the fruit cocktail a quick solution for a sweet serving. In a time when convenience often trumped other considerations, this product stood out for its ability to deliver a variety of fruits in one easy package. Despite shifts in consumer preferences, it remained a practical and appealing choice for those looking for quick fruit options. Eggs in a nest, also known as eggs in a frame, brought a playful twist to traditional breakfast eggs by frying them inside a hole cut from a slice of bread. This simple yet delightful dish allowed for creativity and personalization during preparation, making breakfast an engaging meal. It was particularly popular for its ease of preparation and the joy it brought to the breakfast table, allowing for variations such as different bread types or added toppings like cheese or herbs. The interactive cooking process, cutting the bread and watching the egg cook perfectly in the middle, was a key appeal, making it a favorite among families. This dish stood out for its simplicity and the fun it added to cooking, making it a go-to choice for a quick and enjoyable breakfast. TV brand frozen breakfasts offered a comprehensive, ready-to-eat meal solution that included sausages, eggs, pancakes, and hash browns, simplifying the morning routine for many American families. Introduced in the 1970s, these breakfasts catered to the need for convenience and variety, allowing families to enjoy a hearty meal without extensive preparation. The marketing of these products highlighted their quick and easy preparation, appealing particularly to those with hectic morning schedules. The assortment within each package made these breakfasts highly appealing, as they catered to various preferences within a family, all from a single, easy-to-prepare kit. This product line was well received for providing a diverse and satisfying breakfast experience that could be enjoyed by everyone at the table. That wraps up our list of breakfasts that made the Great Depression bearable for us. If you found something familiar, like and subscribe to our channel for more.